So what did I think of Tommy's video rant? Well, at first I agreed with everyone who thinks he made a laughingstock of himself. He'd lost it. It was very foolish. Initially I was glad, particularly because he'd come out with this lie that I'm a Nazi. But the more I looked at it, the more I felt sorry for Tommy Robinson, because I understand a little bit of the pressure that he's under. When he says that his face is his hoodie and he's lived like that for 3 years, I know what he means, because I've lived like that for 12 years. I was on my first national paper front page in 1986. I've led from the front at marches every bit as exciting and utterly futile as Walthamstow since before Tommy was even born. I stopped doing it in 1987 because we worked out back then how counterproductive marches like Walthamstow really are. Yes, I have security activities because, unlike Tommy, I don't get a police escort in and out. I have to rely on my own people, and knowing how useless and anti-British the police usually are, I'm very pleased to do so. We don't get any rest, I know that. It's the price, Tommy, of being a leader. You put yourself up for it, you can't whine about it. I've had three court cases, each one facing up to 7 years in prison just for telling the truth. I was put on trial for calling Islam a vicious, wicked faith in 2004 when I predicted the 7/7 bombings on tubes and buses in London. I know the pressure, Tommy. But to face prison for criticising Muslim grooming gangs, for talking about Muslim terrorism, under a law that says telling the truth is no defence, is an occupational hazard. I regard it as a badge of honour. But not paying a tax bill, then admitting it on video, is plain stupid. That's how they got Al Capone. I sympathise with what Tommy says about the vultures. Some of the criticism levelled against him is very valid, but some of it is very unfair. It comes with the territory. Some people want to believe everything bad that they hear. Some of those people criticising Tommy aren't fit to wipe dog shit off his trainers. It's as simple as that. But some of the criticism is justified. But people believe what they hear. I heard from 3 sources that regional organisers of the EDL were being paid for filling coaches. I've now talked to enough regional organisers to be sure that that wasn't true. So I'm sorry. I apologise to the ROs. I was misinformed. Just as Tommy's been misinformed about my house. My wife bought a ruin, working double shifts nursing to pay for it, and I rebuilt it. I built the roof over my kids' heads with my own hands. It wasn't paid for by the BNP, not 1 penny. I believe Tommy when he complains that the Zionist billionaires who fund Pam Geller, Robert Spencer, James Goen, Chris Knowles and various other people he works with aren't paying his mortgage. Of course they wouldn't. They don't give a damn about working class Brits like Tommy. To them, Stephen Lennon is just another stupid guy to be manipulated, used, then tossed aside when he's done what they want, which is to wind up Britain's Muslim colonists into behaving even more badly than they otherwise would. Because the Zionists and neocons want young Brits to hate them so much that they queue up to go fight in their wars for oil and Greater Israel. Tommy challenges me to provide evidence of Zionist billionaires funding the EDL. By the very nature, it's impossible to provide evidence of something like that. I'm not going to be given the bag that the gold came in, am I? So I don't know. But what I do know is that Tommy deliberately avoids answering the questions raised by the clearly identifiable, verifiable facts in my booklet, What Lies Behind the English Defence League. He doesn't want, I think, to admit that people have been trying to use him as a tool to manipulate the white working class. That's why he doesn't deny what I say about Kenana, but doesn't say anything about it. It's interesting he doesn't deny these things, but we need answers. I'm not raising this to score points, but because it matters. It's not in the interests of Britain to have its nationalist street movement manipulated by people who dragged us into war in Iraq, into war in Afghanistan, and into the bombing of Libya. People who are now trying to do the same to get us involved in Syria. The people who put the whole of North Africa into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood, just so the Zionist lobby can then claim that Israel is the only reliable friend the West has in the Middle East. Frank Gaffney, who finances and runs the pro-Zionist counter-jihad groups that give Tommy his platforms in Brussels, Stockholm and just the other day in New York, is a close associate of Dick Cheney, boss of the giant American company Halliburton. These capitalist vultures make billions literally, every time they manage to manipulate public opinion into accepting another one of their wicked bloody wars. They make fortunes on the broken backs of our dead soldiers and out of our taxes. Which is why websites like Gates of Vienna and Atlas Shrugged, financed by the same people who pay for the war propaganda videos put out by the EDL Jewish Division's James Cohen, and run by people with whom Tommy and Paul Weston share speaking platforms, want to see us dragged into the endless series of wars they call the Clash of Civilizations. Their wars will be fought with our boys' blood and with our taxes, and will lead to bombs in our streets. That's why it matters that these people are manipulating Tommy. Because we don't need a clash of civilizations, we just want Islam out of Britain and British troops out of those fly-blown Muslim deserts. Tommy sidesteps, for example, the question of Chris Knowles, who was one of the founders of the EDL, present at the meeting in Alan Lake's Barbican flat. Tommy says he's lost his £20,000 job. How is he a Zionist billionaire financing the EDL? But I didn't say that Knowles himself has money. It's a documented fact in my study that one of the 3 directors of the Centre of Vigilance for Freedom is Chris Knowles. His co-director is Christine Brim, who's also Chief Executive of the Centre for Policy Studies, set up and funded by Frank Gaffney, whose project for the New American Century invented the weapons of mass destruction lie that Tony Blair used to drag Britain into the Iraq War. These are facts, direct connections between people that Tommy Robinson works closely with and the people who've got us into all these wars. Tommy needs to tell us who decided to appoint James Cohen as head of the Jewish Division, and why, when Cohen isn't merely based in Canada, but is also a senior figure in Frank Gaffney, again, in his International Free Press Society. Cohen's been directly involved in circulating propaganda films designed to make the case for using British and American planes and taxis to bomb Iran. Something of the way that Muslim gangs noncing our girls on our streets would just love, because the Iranians and Shia Muslims, and therefore they're hated in the vast majority of the Sunni mosques that increasingly dominate our towns and skylines. Tommy needs to tell us who appointed Peter Risdon to run the EDL Extra blog. What does Peter Pettant, as he calls himself, do in the shadows? Who decided to give important backroom jobs in the EDL's web presence to him and Simon Bennett, both proven police grasses? Risdon's first venture into anti-Islamification protests included giving a platform to the twisted UAF-supporting Peter Tatchell, who wants to legalise paedophilia. With judgment as bad as that, Risdon should never have been allowed near the EDL, let alone a position of influence. As Tommy is deputy leader of the British Freedom Party, he also needs to explain how it helps the overwhelmingly working class supporters of the EDL to be trying to hook it up with a tiny, stillborn party headed by Paul Weston, who as far back as 2007 was hobnobbing with Douglas Murray, a leading figure in the neocon policy exchange think tank. True, when Murray and his influential friends produce reports criticising radical Islam, we can agree with them. But they're also part of the political and media elite that keeps dragging us into wars that have nothing to do with us. They're relentless cheerleaders for the mass immigration that's destroying England, because it helps keep down wages and the profits of their big financial backers up. And they're the intellectual driving force behind the drive to privatise the public services, schools and social housing that were paid for and built by the sweat of generations of ordinary British workers. They're the people ripping off Britain. That's why it matters that Tommy is being guided by people like Pam Geller of Atlas Shrugged. Yes, she's great on Islam, but she's also a fanatical advocate of the rights of big business, and especially the banks, to screw everybody else. And she regards Israel as the most important country on the planet. Well, I think that's fine and natural for Jews to think that if they want. But I think that Britain is the best country on the planet, and I don't see why we should go fighting other people's bloody wars. Tommy, you can't hide from these questions, or from any of the others raised by this document, by attacking everyone asking for answers as a vulture or a Nazi. Facts don't have political persuasions, they're just facts. And concerns about them are the real concerns of real Englishmen. That's why Tommy should also go back and read What Lies Behind the English Defence League again, and then do what every nationalist who's read it, and also Billy Blake's excellent EDL Coming Down the Road before it, wants him to do. cut all links with the Zionists, the neocons and the militant gay lobby, who have no place in a movement like ours based on the values of family and tradition. Make it clear that the English Defence League is only interested in defending our country, our freedoms, our heritage and our children, and that it will not be manipulated by outsiders or big business lobbyists, because Britons should fight for Britain only.